Hello, welcome to Culture TV. Since when did objects like tables and chairs have a gender? Well, it turns out that in Russian they always have. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. Keep watching. So this is lesson 31 of our online program, Let's Speak Russian. And we're finally moving on to a new topic. We've already done a lot of work on verbs, and I hope that's paid off because, as you know, verbs are the fundamentals of any language. They form that foundation, that washing line that I keep referring to. And now that we can hopefully use verbs almost automatically, we can now start pegging on clothes to this washing line in the form of different parts of speech. And we're going to start with nouns and adjectives today. But before we do that, we need to be happy with the idea of gender, okay? So as you already know, we've seen this a few times. In Russian, each noun is assigned to a gender, masculine, feminine, or neuter. Now, if you've already studied other languages before, you're probably happy with the idea of gender anyway. However, if this is completely new to you, then all I'll say is think of gender as groups. Linguists have just come up with this idea of gender, but it's just simply a group that a noun, any object, belongs to, okay? And they're just called masculine, feminine, and neuter. So yes, this is grammatical gender, and that's it, nothing else. It has no relevance at all to any of the physical or even abstract properties of the object of the noun that we're referring to. So when we say that a table, so the noun table, has a masculine gender in Russian, we do not mean that the table is demonstrating some kind of masculine properties. All we mean is that the way this word functions in the sentence, the way we operate with the word table in a sentence will differ because it is a masculine noun, i.e. it belongs to the masculine group. It belongs to one of three possible groups. If it was a feminine noun belonging to a different group, we would have to alter the way we use this word in a sentence, and that's it. Don't overcomplicate it. Otherwise, we also need to know that it's not just the noun itself, but any other determiners, so that's adjectives and pronouns mainly, that are affected by the gender. Now, obviously in Russian we don't have articles, so they're not included as determiners, and that actually makes life so much easier. So let's consider this word, dvor. Dvor. What does this mean? Yes, it's a courtyard. We saw this last time. It's that area between a few blocks of houses, okay? Now, that's just one word. What about if we want to describe it? Let's say we want to say that the courtyard is large. What do? Quite simple. Let's go find out how do we say large in Russian. We'll go straight into Google Translate. Here we go. Large in Russian will be большой. Большой. There we go. You've seen me do it. Большой. And if we add it together, we will have большой двор. Большой двор. A noun phrase that makes perfect sense, okay? We can even start making simple sentences. For example, это большой двор. Это большой двор. This is a, or this is the, large courtyard, okay? In most cases, if you say это at the start, it means this is a, okay? Это дом, this is a house. Это двор, this is a courtyard, okay? That's it. And there we go. Это большой двор means this is a large courtyard. Great. What about if we want to describe something else as large? Maybe not a courtyard, but something like this. Аптека. Аптека. What does this mean? Yes, of course, it's a pharmacy, okay? A pharmacy. But this does not work. We can't do that. That is wrong. Why? What's wrong? What's happened? Well, it's because аптека is a different gender to двор. Двор is masculine, whilst аптека is feminine. Yes, we saw the genders of these two nouns in the previous video. Аптека is feminine. Therefore, as we saw at the start of this video, we have to change the other determiners. In this case, большой is the adjective, and we have to modify it as well so that it suits, so that it matches the noun аптека. Okay? Here's how we do it. We change the ending to get большая. Большая. And now that makes sense, okay? That is now correct. Это большая аптека. Okay? Now, it's all well and good knowing that we have to change adjectives or other determiners so that they suit the gender of the noun they're describing. But the first question that arises, how on earth do we know what gender a noun is? And it's a good question to ask. And generally in languages, yes, there are rules that outline how to determine gender, but very often there are exceptions. There are some grey areas and so on. And to be honest, it's the same in Russian. So I'm going to show you the rules and, they're rules of thumb. It's a safety net that you can refer to, but I recommend just each time you learn a new word, you also learn its gender, okay? But either way, I'm going to show you the rules now. At least be aware of them, okay? Even if you decide not to use them, just please at least be aware of them. So, first of all, masculine nouns. They tend to end in a consonant, and that includes the letter y, okay? Sometimes, and when I say sometimes, I mean rarely actually, they can end in the letters a or ya. And lastly, and this actually makes sense, masculine nouns refer to any one that also has a masculine, i.e. a male gender. So a father, a brother, or any name which is a boy's name, okay? Those are all masculine nouns. For example, город. There we go, it ends in the letter d, город. Therefore, we can presume, and we will be right to presume that it's a masculine noun, okay? Город. Same idea, друг, отпуск, магазин. We've already seen all of these words, okay? Right, what about feminine nouns? Now, this is where the confusion arises. Yes, in the majority of cases, they end in the letters a or ya. But remember, I did say that masculine nouns very rarely end in a or ya. So if a word ends in a or ya, it is more likely to be feminine. In fact, maybe not 9 times out of 10, but I would say 8 times out of 10, if it ends in a or ya, it will be feminine, okay? And yes, sometimes they can also end in a consonant or a soft sign. That also happens. But the general rule is that masculine nouns end in a consonant, whilst feminine nouns end in these letters, okay? And likewise, they also refer to anyone that is female, so a mother, a sister, or any other proper noun, which is feminine. We've seen all of these words before. Улица, вода, аптека, mama, okay? And finally, neuter nouns. These tend to end in the letters or ye, okay? And yes, sometimes they can also end in a consonant or a soft sign. And generally, many loan words are neuter, and this concerns mainly specialized terms. So if you're reading, an article, a very scientific article, and there is some very specialized terminology, most likely that those words will be neuter. Not always, but sometimes. It all depends. But all these rules here just generally summarize the idea, okay? It's not always, these are not concrete. Examples, поле, молоко, okay? Right, those are the rules. You can either learn them if you really want to and just use them and apply them each time, or as I say, each time you learn a new word, you learn its gender with it. And, the more words you learn, the wider your vocabulary. When you obtain a word bank with a large volume, you will start to automatically identify the gender of new words because you'll just be used to recognizing gender of new words. It will just become second nature to you, okay? Now, the next question that obviously arises is, okay, we now know the gender of the noun, but what happens to that adjective? And we need to look at something called agreement, okay? And that's what we saw at the start of the video with dvor and apteka. So this is the definition of agreement. Whenever we use an adjective to describe a noun, the ending of the adjective will depend on the gender, number, and also case of the noun. So the adjective has to agree with the noun, and that is the correct term to use, agreement, okay? So ignore case for now because that's a topic for later videos, okay? But I'm just showing you the definition anyway. But what it means is that if a noun is a certain gender, the endings of that adjective have to satisfy the gender of that noun, okay? Now we actually have this in English, but we don't really pay much attention to it. Take a look at this sentence. This boy eats those apples. Yeah? We have one boy but several apples. That's why we say those apples, not this apples, but those. And likewise, we don't say those boy. It's only one, so we say this boy. In English, we only really have this with demonstrative pronouns, but in Russian, this applies to all determiners, okay? So if you ever get confused, just think of this sentence and apply it to all of the situations of agreement in Russian, okay? So let's have a look at the table of agreement. So here are masculine, feminine, neuter, and plural nouns, and here are the corresponding endings. Adjectives that describe masculine nouns in Russian will end in y, I, or oy. For example, большой, which we saw at the start of the video. For feminine, it will be aya or yaya. For neuter, it will be oye or yeye. And finally, for plural, it will be iye or iye. Okay? Those are all the endings that we use. There are no other endings for adjectives in Russian. They're all here presented in front of you. The question is now, how do we decide which ones to use? We'll see that in a second. Let's take a look at an example first. So here is the Russian adjective первый, первый, which means first. So let's take a look at a few examples. If we wanted to say the first entrance, we would say первый вход. Первый вход, okay? Notice we have the ending I. Now in the dictionary or in the translator, it will always be given by default in its masculine form, okay? So whenever you look up an adjective in the dictionary, it will always end in I, or oi. And then it's your job to convert it to the feminine, neuter, or plural form, okay? You need to do the agreement. So if we wanted to say the first street, and now street is feminine, okay? Первая улица. Первая, okay? Notice the ending has changed to первая. For neuter nouns, for example, field, поле, it would be первое поле. Первое поле. And finally, for plural, первые книги. Первые книги. The first books, okay? Another example, чистый. Чистый, which means clean. Now you try saying yourself. Now, how would you say the clean courtyard in Russian? You try it yourself first. Yes, it would be чистый двор. We don't need to do anything to the adjective because remember, it's always given in its masculine form straight away. Чистый двор. Okay, now how would you say clean water? Try and remember the gender of the noun water. Okay, so it's feminine, therefore it would be чистая вода. Чистая вода, okay? Now the word face in Russian is neuter, and therefore to say clean face, it would be чистое лицо. Чистое лицо, okay? And finally for plural, here's an example, чистые пруды. Чистые пруды, which means the clean ponds. And coincidentally, this happens to be a station on the Moscow Underground. Here it is. Чистые пруды, the clean ponds. Now you're still probably wondering, how do we determine, how on earth do we know which ending to use? Because I gave you 2 or 3 in that table. So as you probably gathered already, you're about to see some more rules. Yes. Now again, you can either learn these rules if you want to, but if you're already overwhelmed by the amount of rules that you have to learn, then you can kind of just not ignore it, but just be aware of it, okay? So what we need to do is we need to look at the consonant before the ending, okay? If the consonant is soft, the endings will be I for masculine, yaya for feminine, and yeye for neuter. If the consonant is hard, then it will be I for masculine, aya for feminine, and oye for neuter, okay? The ending oi for masculine is used only when the stress of an adjective falls on this ending. So it's just an ending on its own, it doesn't follow the rules in relation to soft and hard consonants. It's, большой, we put the stress on the end, большой. By the way, you might know Большой театр in Moscow, the large theatre, the big theatre, and in English many people say Bolshoi, which is incorrect. The stress actually is on the end. Why is it on the end? Well, because the ending is oi. In all of the cases, I, ya, ye, I, aya, oya, the stress isn't on the end, as we saw in чистый, первый, okay? Now, there are a few exceptions. First of all, if the consonant is one of the following, k, g, ch, zh, sh, sh, or ch, and by the way, that second letter there is a g, this is just the font, then the masculine ending will be I, okay? And the plural ending will be iye. That is because we cannot write the letter I after any of these consonants. That's just a spelling rule. And the second exception is that if the consonant is one of the following, zh, sh, sh, ch, or tse, then the neuter ending will be yeye. Same idea, we cannot write a letter or after any of these consonants. Just another rule of spelling, okay? Now, if all else fails, you can use a dictionary to translate the adjective. It will be given in the masculine form as we know, okay? And therefore, if you see that, okay, it ends in I, therefore the ending will be aya for feminine and oya for neuter. If it ends in I, then if you want to convert it to feminine, it will be yaya and yeye for neuter. If it ends in oi, then for feminine it will be aya and oya for neuter, okay? So let's return to the examples we saw already with первый, which is first. Первый вход means the first entrance. Let's say you didn't know how to say first, you would Google it or look it up in the dictionary, you would see that it ends in I, and therefore you would know that for feminine we convert it to aya because v is a hard consonant. Therefore for neuter it would be первое, and for plural it would be первые, okay? So I am going to give you some homework. Consider these following adjectives and nouns. We have новый, хороший, красивый, and короткий. Yes, they're all in their masculine form. And here are some nouns. Дом, улица, окно, and волосы. You will need to obviously translate these words to find out what they mean, and then could you please form as many noun phrase combinations as possible, and obviously ideally they should make sense. By noun phrase I just mean adjective plus noun, that's it. That's what a noun phrase is, adjective plus noun, okay? And as you see, I've also given you the plural form so that you can work with not just gender but number as well, because remember, agreement concerns not just gender but number. You'll end up with making phrases like a large car, large cars, and so on, okay? Try your best. We'll discuss the answers in the next video. If you have any problems, feel free to ask in the comments. Any other questions, any other queries, any other feedback, also in the comments. I'll answer them for sure. Thank you very much for your attention. See you next time. Goodbye.